The WhatsApp notification sound made my heart sink. It was the family group chat again. Eleanor, can you come clean up after Reed's promotion party on Friday? My mom Vivian's message appeared, followed by a string of party emojis that felt like a slap to my face. I clutched my phone tighter, my stomach knotting with that familiar tension. What promotion party? I typed, deleted, and typed again before hitting send. The VP celebration for Reed. It's all over his Instagram, Vivian replied instantly. Mostly financial executives and clients. Not really your scene, honey. My chest tightened as the words burned into my screen. Once again, I wasn't worthy of an invitation, but apparently perfect for handling the dirty dishes. But you want me to come clean up after? My fingers trembled slightly as I typed. Exactly. Nobody arranges leftovers like my Eleanor. Just come after everyone leaves. We'll handle the important part, she wrote, adding a kissy face emoji that made my blood boil. I'm Eleanor, 32, and in my family's eyes, I'm their personal on-call maid, good enough to scrub dishes but not to celebrate my brother's success. The medical skills I'd spent years developing meant nothing compared to Reed's financial achievements. By Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed constantly. Don't forget those garbage bags for gift wrapping, read Vivian's text. Reed's new boss will be there, everything must be perfect, demanded another. Each message made my grip on my phone tighten. The audacity stung. They hadn't even asked if I was free, just assumed I'd appear like always, invisible but essential. I stared at the hotel confirmation email. Part of me felt guilty. Was it wrong to leave them hanging? But then I remembered my nursing graduation they'd skip for Reed's golf tournament. No more, I whispered, silencing their notifications. This time they're on their own. Friday morning, Vivian called right as I was applying moisturizer. Eleanor, just confirming you'll be here by 4, she said in that fake cheerful tone that always made my skin crawl. Everyone's counting on you to handle the cleanup plan before Reed's important guests arrive. I paused, my reflection staring back at me with uncertainty, then heard myself say, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of it." "Oh, thank goodness," she exhaled dramatically. "You always know how to make everything spotless. Honestly, what would this family do without you?" "Yeah," I whispered. "I know exactly what I'm worth." As afternoon faded into evening, I prepared, not for scrubbing dishes at their mansion, but for my anniversary celebration. I slipped into the midnight blue dress Michael had complimented last month, applied my makeup with extra care, and grabbed my party clutch bag. As I locked my apartment door and stepped into the warm spring air, the invisible weight I'd carried for years seemed to lift from my shoulders. For once, I chose my happiness over their demands. By 7:30, I was seated in the Grand Hotel's luxurious restaurant, Michael across from me, champagne flute in hand and genuine smile on my face. Let them figure it out, I thought, clinking glasses with the man who actually valued me. Tonight belonged to us. The restaurant's elegant atmosphere enveloped me like a warm embrace. The gentle music, sophisticated conversation around us, and soft lighting created a sense of peace I rarely experienced in my family's presence. Our sommelier approached with menus, his manner respectful. "Good evening, are you ready to select your wine for the evening?" "Not quite yet," I replied. "But we'll start with the champagne flight." He nodded appreciatively and stepped away, leaving us to enjoy the moment. Back at my parents' house, I imagined the unfolding disaster. Vivian would be frantically checking her watch while Howard mumbled his usual "she'll be here soon." And Reed? He'd be rolling his eyes, telling everyone how typical this was of his unreliable sister. I smiled as I imagined their faces when they realized I wasn't coming at all. The champagne arrived, and Michael and I clinked glasses. I savored the bubbly sensation, letting it dance on my tongue. Looking around, I noticed other couples laughing and celebrating. Some were dressed for special occasions, others simply enjoying each other's company. For the first time in forever, I was actually living in the moment. No cleanup duties, no organizing, no family crisis to manage. Tonight was about us. My phone vibrated in my clutch, but I didn't even glance at it. I could practically hear Vivian's frantic messages. Eleanor, where are you? Reed's boss just arrived. Why aren't you picking up? This is so irresponsible. I felt a twinge of guilt that quickly dissolved after drinking my second glass of champagne. Almost felt bad for them. Almost. When our server returned, Michael encouraged me to order the lobster I'd been eyeing. When my plate arrived, artfully presented with delicate garnishes, a genuine smile spread across my face. This was freedom, choosing my own path without my family's suffocating expectations. By the time our chocolate souffle arrived, I was completely relaxed, leaning into Michael's arm as we shared the decadent dessert. Let them figure it out, I whispered, taking another bite. Perhaps they'd finally realize how much they'd taken me for granted all these years. But tonight, their crisis wasn't my emergency. Back at my parents' mansion, chaos reigned. Where is she? Vivian demanded, pacing across the marble kitchen floor, her voice reaching that high-pitched tone reserved for when her perfect plans unraveled. She said she'd handle it, Howard replied uncertainly. Perhaps there's traffic? Traffic? For 3 hours? Vivian snapped, gesturing wildly. It's not like Eleanor has anything important happening in her life. She knew how crucial tonight was for Reed's career. Reed sauntered in, adjusting his expensive cufflinks with a smirk. Honestly, I don't know why you still count on her. She's always been unreliable. Unreliable? Howard countered, surprising everyone. She's carried this family for years. She probably just got caught up with some medical emergency, Reed shrugged dismissively. Emergency? Vivian's voice reached that pitch that made wine glasses vibrate. She was supposed to be here 2 hours ago. The serving platters are still dirty, the specialty cocktail ingredients aren't prepped, and half the appetizers are still frozen. What am I supposed to tell Reed's boss when he sees this disaster? Reed shrugged, pulling out his phone to check his Instagram likes. Not my career on the line. Maybe next time don't rely on someone who. That's enough. Howard's voice thundered across the kitchen, shocking everyone into silence. Meanwhile, I was feeding Michael a bite of our chocolate souffle, completely oblivious to their meltdown. The dessert was heavenly, warm chocolate cake with a molten cinder that paired perfectly with the raspberry coulis. Across from us, an elderly couple clinked champagne glasses, celebrating what looked like 50 years together. Their genuine happiness filled the space around them. It felt incredible to be in this beautiful moment instead of being the invisible helper at a party where I wasn't even welcome as a guest. My phone lit up again in my purse, but I didn't bother looking. Tonight, I wasn't on call for their self-created emergencies. At the house, chaos had reached fever pitch. Vivian frantically dialed my number for the 8th time, her perfectly manicured hand shaking. The call went straight to voicemail. She's deliberately ignoring me, she gasped, staring at her phone like it had personally betrayed her. Reed smirked. Told you so. Flaky as always. Howard exhaled deeply, adjusting his glasses. That's enough, Reed. Let's just handle this ourselves. Eleanor isn't coming, so we need to manage on our own. Easy for you to say, Vivian hissed. You're not the professional event planner with a reputation at stake. The doorbell chimed, and the first guests arrived to a house in complete disarray. Vivian forced her signature hostess smile, but anyone could see she was internally combusting. I could picture her surveying the unwiped counters, unlit candles, and untouched appetizer platters, silently cursing my name. And for the first time, I felt absolutely zero remorse. As the night continued, I savored every moment at the hotel. Michael had just ordered another round of champagne when curiosity got the better of me. I glanced at my phone to find a flood of missed calls and frantic messages. Where are you? Everything's a disaster. Guests are arriving. Call me now. How could you be so selfish, Eleanor? I smiled, placed my phone face down on the table, and took Michael's hand. For years, I canceled plans and rearranged my life to meet their demands. Tonight was my turn. At the mansion, the dinner party had descended into elegant chaos. The dining table was eventually set, but lacked Vivian's signature perfection. The crystal glasses were streaked, the linen napkins were hastily folded, and most of the designer candles remained unlit. Where are those shrimp canapes? Vivian whispered harshly to Howard, who was struggling with an expensive bottle of Cabernet. I'm trying my best, he muttered as the corkscrew twisted at an awkward angle. You said you'd handle the food prep. I said Eleanor would handle it, Vivian snapped, her perfect smile slipping. But she's clearly abandoned us. Reed, lounging at the head of the table with a tumbler of scotch, sighed dramatically. Everyone needs to relax. Nobody's going to notice if the napkins don't match the flowers. Can we please start dinner? Reed, this is your promotion celebration, Vivian said through clenched teeth. You should care about the impression we're making. Well, maybe next time hire a real event staff instead of relying on your nurse daughter, one of Reed's colleagues commented just loudly enough for Vivian to hear. Her face froze in that perfect hostess smile, though I could imagine her blood pressure skyrocketing. While they scrambled to save their failing party, I was posting a selfie with Michael on Instagram. We clinked champagne glasses, the Grand Hotel's famous signature soufflé between us with the caption, #anniversary celebration. With the man who values me, heart. A few tables away, I overheard a doctor couple discussing their medical volunteer trip to Costa Rica. Their passionate descriptions of providing healthcare to underserved communities ignited something inside me, a reminder of my original nursing dream my family had dismissed as impractical. I squeezed Michael's hand, whispering I might apply for that International Medical Writers Program after all. As our magical evening continued, my phone vibrated once more. A text from Howard appeared. We've made a terrible mistake, Eleanor. We shouldn't have taken you for granted all these years. Can we talk soon? I read his words twice, feeling a complex mixture of validation and caution. Were they finally seeing me as more than their personal assistant? But tonight wasn't about their revelation, it was about reclaiming my worth. With that thought, I turned off my phone and smiled at Michael, ready for our suite? As we strolled through the hotel's elegant lobby toward the elevators, I felt pounds lighter. For once, I wasn't carrying the weight of their expectations, disappointments, and demands. Tonight, I had chosen myself, and the freedom was intoxicating. In our luxury suite, my phone lit up again. I hesitated but checked the message. Howard again, the party ended early. Vivian is having a meltdown, but I think she finally sees what we've been doing. Please call tomorrow? I exhaled slowly, conflicted emotions washing over me. Was this genuine remorse, or just another manipulation to lure me back into my convenient role? I set the phone aside without responding. Tonight wasn't about fixing our dysfunctional family, it was about proving I deserved better. Back at the house, the evening's collapse was evident everywhere. Guests had departed an hour early, murmuring excuses about early flights and babysitters. The kitchen counters were cluttered with half-eaten canapes and lipstick-stained glasses, while the imported tablecloth bore multiple wine stains. Reed had retreated to the media room, scrolling through social media, likely seeing my hotel post, while Vivian stood in the kitchen, surveying the devastation with barely contained fury. This disaster wouldn't have happened if Eleanor had been here, she hissed, throwing a crystal glass into the sink hard enough to chip it. Perhaps, Howard said quietly, leaning against the marble counter. Or maybe we shouldn't have expected her to be our unpaid event staff all these years. She turned to him, her perfectly maintained eyebrows arching dangerously. What exactly does that mean, Howard? It means, he replied, removing his glasses slowly, that Eleanor has sacrificed more for this family than any of us acknowledge. Her medical expertise, her time, her own life plans. Maybe it's time we started valuing her as a daughter rather than as household staff. Vivian opened her mouth for a sharp retort but stopped herself, a flicker of uncomfortable recognition crossing her face. Back in our hotel suite, I slipped off my heels, poured myself a glass of sparkling water, and curled up next to Michael on the plush king bed. My notifications had finally stopped lighting up my phone. The night had been magical, not just the food and ambience, but the simple act of choosing myself. For the first time in my adult life, I had established a real boundary, and despite the guilt lingering at the edges, the overwhelming feeling was liberation. As Michael dozed off beside me, I thought about Howard's last message. Perhaps I'd call him tomorrow, but tonight, I would let my family sit with the reality of what life looked like when Eleanor wasn't there to clean up their messes. Let them handle their own problems, just this once. I woke to sunlight streaming through the hotel's floor-to-ceiling windows, feeling unexpectedly light. No frantic texts demanding explanations or help that disturbed my sleep, a small victory worth savoring. Michael and I ordered room service breakfast and enjoyed it on our private balcony, watching the city come alive below us. For once, my Sunday wasn't consumed by sorting through family drama or rushing to fix someone else's crisis. Around noon, my phone rang. Howard. I hesitated before answering. Hi, Dad. Eleanor, he said, his voice lacking its usual academic detachment. Do you have a moment to talk? I do, I replied, keeping my tone neutral despite the nervous flutter in my stomach. I need to apologize, he began awkwardly. Last night. We shouldn't have expected you to abandon your plans to clean up after Reed's party. That wasn't right. His words caught me off guard. In 32 years, I'd rarely heard my father acknowledge a family failing. It's okay, Dad, I said, my voice betraying my emotion. I've just been feeling like a ghost lately, visible only when there's work to be done, invisible when there's celebration. I know, he said with a heavy sigh. Your mother and I talked after everyone left. We've come to depend on your medical knowledge and organizational skills without ever really appreciating what you've contributed. That means a lot, Dad, I admitted, my throat tightening with unexpected emotion. We talked for a few more minutes before ending the call. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it felt like the first real step toward change. That afternoon, Naomi stopped by my apartment with a bottle of wine and takeout. My best friend since nursing school days, she'd always been my reality check when family drama became too overwhelming. Spill everything, she demanded, dropping onto my sofa with her characteristic lack of pretense. Did the fancy promotion party implode without your cleanup services? Completely, I said with a satisfied smile. But here's the shocking part, Howard actually called to apologize. Her eyes widened dramatically. The professor admitted he was wrong? That's like witnessing a solar eclipse. I know, I said, shaking my head in disbelief. I think they finally realized I'm more than just their convenient medical consultant and cleanup crew. It's about damn time, Naomi declared, raising her wine glass. To Eleanor, finally being seen. Throughout the evening, I found myself reflecting on Howard's unexpected apology. It wasn't comprehensive, but it was genuine. Later, I texted him, "Thanks for calling today, Dad. It meant more than you know. Let's talk again soon." His response appeared almost immediately, "Of course. We owe you far more than just words." Something had shifted, a small but meaningful change in how my family perceived me. That night, curled up with my medical journal, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The constant weight of their expectations had lifted, if only temporarily. Whether this change would last remained uncertain, but one thing was absolutely clear: I would never again become invisible in my own family. The following week, I decided it was time for the harder conversation with Vivian. Howard's apology had opened the door, but my mother was the gatekeeper of family dynamics. I called her on Tuesday afternoon when I knew her schedule would be clear. She answered on the second ring, her voice still carrying that event planner efficiency. "Eleanor, this is unexpected. Is something wrong?" "No, Mom," I replied calmly. "But we need to talk." There was a noticeable pause. "About Friday night? And everything else?" "Exactly," I confirmed. We met at a trendy bistro near her Buckhead office. She arrived in full armor, designer handbag, perfect makeup, and that stiff posture that signaled she was preparing for battle. "Howard mentioned you were upset," she began, skipping the usual small talk. "I wasn't just upset," I replied firmly. "I was deeply hurt, Mom. I've spent years being this family's medical consultant, event helper, and emergency contact, yet none of that seems to matter unless it somehow benefited Reed's career." She started to interrupt, but I raised my hand. "Please let me finish. You didn't even consider inviting me to Reed's promotion party. You just expected me to clean up after guests I wasn't good enough to mingle with. Do you know how demeaning that feels?" Her perfectly maintained expression cracked slightly, showing a glimpse of something I rarely saw: self-doubt. "Eleanor, it wasn't deliberate. We've always relied on you because you're the responsible one. You handle things without drama." "That's exactly the problem," I said, my medical training helping me keep my voice steady. "I never complained because you raised me to believe my feelings weren't as important as keeping the family machine running. But I'm not just your convenient nurse, Mom. I'm your daughter, and I deserve recognition for who I am, not just what I can do for everyone else." She stared into her untouched latte, stirring it mechanically. "You're right," she admitted, the words clearly difficult for her. "We've taken advantage of your kindness. I didn't realize how much we demanded while giving so little acknowledgement." I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in years. "I'll still help when I can, but I'm establishing boundaries. My relationship with Michael and my career deserve priority too." The conversation ended with unexpected warmth. Her apology seemed genuine, and while I knew old patterns wouldn't vanish overnight, I felt cautiously hopeful. In the weeks that followed, subtle changes appeared. My parents began actually inviting me to family events rather than just assigning me tasks. They asked about my medical writing projects with genuine interest. Reed remained somewhat aloof, but I no longer measured my worth by his approval. One Sunday, Michael and I arrived for a family dinner, with a proper invitation. Vivian greeted us warmly, and I noticed immediately that the dining room was fully prepared. "Everything's taken care of," she said with a genuine smile. "Tonight, you're our guests." I returned her smile, feeling a connection I'd almost forgotten was possible. For the first time in years, they were seeing Eleanor the person, not just Eleanor the family utility. The months that followed felt like a quiet awakening in my life. The transformations weren't theatrical, no tearful confessions or dramatic family therapy sessions, but they were genuine, and I noticed them in subtle ways. Vivian's texts now asked about my latest medical article rather than demanding help with Reed's events. Howard called just to share a book recommendation, not to request my nursing expertise. Even Reed, still career-obsessed as ever, seemed to moderate his dismissive attitude around me. One evening, I scrolled through Vivian's Instagram posts from the promotion disaster. The hastily arranged table settings and mismatched glassware were painfully obvious. I almost instinctively thought of how I would have arranged everything perfectly, the properly polished crystal, the precisely folded napkins, the artfully placed candles. Then I smiled, recognizing an important truth. Creating their perfect image wasn't my responsibility anymore. They had survived, imperfectly, and discovered what it meant to handle things themselves. Naomi dropped by my apartment days later with Thai food and her characteristic honesty. "How's it going, boundary goddess?" she asked, digging into her pad Thai. "Surprisingly liberating," I laughed. "It's strange though, now that I'm not constantly on call for family emergencies, I actually have time for my own life." "Revolutionary concept," she teased. "So what's Eleanor going to do with all this newfound freedom?" "I've been researching something," I admitted, showing her my laptop screen. "That medical writers volunteer program in Guatemala I always dreamed about but never applied for." Naomi's face lit up. "Now that sounds like the Eleanor I've always known was in there." Later, after cleaning up our dinner, I felt a peaceful certainty I hadn't known in years. The version of me who constantly sacrificed her needs for family approval had disappeared. This new Eleanor, the one who valued her relationships, career, and dreams equally, had arrived to stay. Weeks later, Vivian texted, planning a small family dinner next month. "Would you and Michael like to join us as guests?" I read her message twice, surprised by the phrasing. No expectations, no tasks, just an invitation. After a moment's thought, I replied, "We'd love to. Thank you for asking." When that evening arrived, Michael and I entered my parents' home feeling genuinely welcome. Vivian greeted us with warm hugs, including one for Michael that wasn't just for show. "Everything's all set," she said. "Just relax and enjoy yourselves. We're so happy you both could come." The dining room looked lovely, not magazine perfect, but comfortable and inviting. Howard was pouring wine in the kitchen, while Reed actually stood to greet us properly. For once, I wasn't rushing between kitchen and dining room, making everything flawless for everyone else. Throughout the evening, I experienced family time in a new way. I debated literature with Howard, compared travel notes with Vivian, and even had a surprisingly pleasant conversation with Reed about healthcare investments. It wasn't a perfect family scene, but it was authentic. As I helped bring dessert plates to the kitchen later, Vivian touched my arm gently. "I'm truly glad you came tonight," she said quietly. "It's wonderful having you here as my daughter, not my staff." Her words surprised me, but her eyes showed sincerity. "Thanks, Mom," I replied, feeling a connection I'd almost forgotten was possible. Driving home with Michael that night, I reflected on how much had shifted. My family remained imperfect, as all families are, but they were making genuine efforts. For the first time, they were seeing me, not as their convenient medical expert and event coordinator, but as a person with valid needs and clear boundaries. And perhaps more importantly, I was finally seeing myself clearly too. Back home, curled up with Michael and my application for the Guatemala program, I felt deeply content. The Eleanor who had walked away from their party was still here, stronger, clearer, and finally free to build a life that honored all parts of herself. This was only the beginning.